Good morning.
Good morning. Today's July, this today, 22nd, 27th,
27th, yeah.
July 27th,
So now the entire world knows we're not oriented to time and place. Right?
2025. And our talk today is Beneath the Fire.
Mm.
And what we're talking about is going deep in our meditations, going deep into that place where all is peace, all is well. Uh, we know it's there. Sometimes it seems hard to find it, but we do find it in meditation, certainly. That's where I find it. And that's the only way I can really calm um, all my thoughts about the news and what's going on in the world. And when I do go there, I do find there is peace there.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're talking about. And beneath the fire, how do we get there? And we were reading some quotes by let's see, can't even think of his name.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, it's not important. A Lamp in the Darkness by Jack Cornfield.
Oh, yeah.
By Jack Cornfield. And do you want to talk about this
Sure.
metaphor
Yeah.
with
Why
it?
don't you read the quote first?
Well, he says, I used to think that to become free, you had to practice like a samurai warrior. But now I understand you have to practice like a devoted mother of a newborn child. It takes the same energy, but has a completely different quality. It's compassion and presence rather than having to defeat the enemy in battle.
I love the metaphor and I love the example, but I also love it as a metaphor when he says to be free. Interestingly, I'm going to turn the volume down on this. To be free, one of the things about motherhood, hopefully, if everything goes well, is that you invited this into your life. If you
You
invited
wanted it,
if
yeah.
you invited parenthood into your life, at the same time, it can appear to rob you from your freedom. And so then how will we be with this? Which is an interesting thing. And I think if we were to treat the enemy, if you will, like a baby that we have invited into the house that we are going to take care of, how would we care for it? And it just shifts the whole paradigm, the idea of taking care of. And I think sometimes, and I hasten to share this, but sometimes in the political world, I think we're taking care of babies. They're certainly not acting like adults. And then the question would be, how do we do that? And I think for me initially, interestingly, and as a parent, I think I acted more like a samurai because that was my upbringing. And I had to train myself not to be a samurai, but to be kind and to be loving and to be sensitive and aware. And what I discovered, of course, in parenting is that those tools worked far better than threatening and menacing and being loud and yelling and screaming and all of the things that I grew up with, unfortunately, that didn't work for me, although they terrified me. They didn't work for me in terms of helping me become a mature or healthy adult. And so I think if we could just look at that example more often and say, how will I care for thee, as opposed to how will I fight thee? And most of us are better equipped for taking care of a child than we are equipped for taking that child or that meeting someone in battle. And I think that that's an interesting thing to consider. It was a powerful idea though to and the other piece of that, which I just mentioned, that I'll re-mention because I think it's so important, is at some level we have brought this into our home. At some
Mhm.
level, we have brought what we don't want into our home because without either the action on our part or without voting or without doing whatever we could have done, there are things we haven't done or things that we are doing that have invited the world to be the way it is. And we're not entirely responsible, but we have some responsibility. So then the question is, how will we not disown it, but how will we own it and care for it?
Well, one of the tips that we received with this is how to take care of yourself when the world's seemingly upside down, is to view upsetting news as a request for prayer
Mm,
and that really helped me. That really helped me. It gives me something to do about it, because I get upset when there's nothing I can do. Uh, I have stopped watching the news. I don't want to see the pictures. I've decided listening to the radio on NPR is a much better source of news. I don't get nearly as upset. But I do like this idea, and we wanted to share it with you, is to view all upsetting news as a prayer request, and then pray for the well-being of everyone involved. And it gives you something to do, and it will help you feel better. I thought that was a brilliant tip. Most of
It
the other
is.
tips we've already shared with you the last
Yeah.
few times.
So that's pretty much it. We hope you have a good week.
No, that's not nearly it. Let's look at
Okay.
some more.
Okay. There's the
Jack Cornfield thinks everything he said was brilliant. Um, I think he's passed now. He had a Buddhist history, and he had a rather painful life. So one of the things, what he really learned was learning to accept the pain and not fight it. Let me see if I can find a quote. Um, the heart is like a garden. It can grow compassion or fear, resentment or love. What seeds will you plant there?
mhm. And water daily.
And water, and water them. He
Yeah.
says compassion arises naturally as the quivering of the heart in the face of pain, ours or another's. When we rest in the great heart of compassion, we discover a capacity to bear witness to, suffer with, and hold dear with our own vulnerable heart the sorrows and beauties of the world.
He's really, again, talking about what he mentions in the first one, which is that's the role of a mother. That's the role of a parent. That's the role of a person who says, I'm not blaming or making you wrong or punishing. I'm finding ways to care for why it is you're crying, why it is you're screaming, why it is you're dying, why it is you're living the way you're living. How can I be with you? And I think of the famous nun who saved children in India. What's it?
She saved dying. I mean,
Yeah,
she brought dying people in from the
what
streets. Mother
Teresa?
Teresa.
My mother, when she was asked one time why she was doing this, she said she was doing this to show respect for those that had been abandoned and in their time of greatest need, to give them, to honor them. And they weren't, and she was saying they're not disposable, they're no disposable people. But to think about honoring somebody who is in the last moments of their life, who may only be semi-conscious, to have the heart to be that compassionate. And the other piece of that that's important is she didn't take care of them because they were going to live well and prosper. She took care of them because they needed to be cared for. I think there's a tendency for us to want to care for the things that will do well and
Mm.
deny or avoid or run away from the things that won't. And what it says is we only respect you while you're doing what we believe or what we appreciate or what we like, as opposed to we need to respect everyone in all of the conditions that they're in.
Yeah, this was in India, and at the
Yeah,
time the caste system is still strong. I'm sure it still is, and that meant that there were the lowest category people were untouchables, and
yeah,
so even if they were dying on the street, you didn't touch them. And they got very upset with her
sure.
for taking them in. Uh,
So part of what I walk away with this is we have to stop treating people that we don't approve of or like though as if they're untouchables.
exactly.
And if we treat them as untouchables, why would we be surprised when they react with no investment in the quality or character of our lives or the lives that we're living? One of the things I learned a long time ago when I remember working on a suicide hotline was that the people that you had the greatest chance of being helped were the ones who had some investment in the world they were living in, that had a support system, that had somebody that if they didn't die, could in some way be related to them. When we tell people they have no value, we make them dangerous to themselves and to us as well. When we treat people as if they do have value, we are looking for it and we can enroll them in looking for it. And very often they behave very differently.
I've got to tell my favorite Mother Teresa story in this. She was in the United States and she was doing a radio interview, and I was listening to it because I admire her. And the disc jockey just kept saying, "What can we do to help you, Mother Teresa?" And he basically was getting geared up to ask for donations to support her work. And he kind of hinted in that direction. And she said, "Have you no orphans in this country?" you could you could help orphans. She says, I have an assignment for you. She said, "I would like you to go out at midnight." And of course, I was listening to this as if she were talking to me. "I want you to go outside at midnight, find a homeless person, and convince him or her that he or she is not alone."
Ooh.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I know we don't have to talk about this. We can talk about other things. It's not that important. I feel bad for them. My thoughts and prayers are there for them.
I'm not that holy. Yeah, yeah. So it was really interesting.
One of our members frequently, at least I believe she still does this, will go to McDonald's. That's one of her sacred places. And when
For
she
breakfast.
for breakfast, and she goes in for her sacred breakfast, and if there's somebody that she sees that is in need of a meal, she'll buy them a meal or invite them in. And she has met the most interesting people. And I think about, interestingly enough, when we go to McDonald's, if we do that, we don't go to feed someone else, we go to feed ourselves. But when we feed somebody else, we feed ourselves as well. And I think she is a good example of not only doing that, but that lesson learned. And what's interesting too is that it doesn't have to do with whether she is in the midst of good times or bad times. It's always time. It's always time to care and reach out. You found it.
Okay, I found some other quotes that are from a psychiatrist
Oh,
and
yeah.
neuroscientist by the name of John Cruz. And this was given with ways to handle, what's going on in the world. But he says, by intention, be intentional with the energy and information you absorb. Guard your attention. The mind, like the soul, needs nourishment. Choose wisdom over noise, truth over drama. Read with discernment. Listen with intention. Let your heart, not the headlines, set your course. Whatever is true, this is a quote from Philippians, whatever is true, whatever is noble, uh, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. That's from Philippians 4:8.
Yeah, I would say think about those, and when you can, give them your voice. I learned a long time ago, and it's served me very, very well. When I see something good, I need to say something about it so that I can hear it, that the good is in some way made loud enough that others could hear it as well. And it's just incredible to me the number of times I've noticed something that I think I could have noticed in silence, that when I've noticed it out loud, the whole world for that person or the condition around them seems to be amplified in a positive way. And so I just think but again, it's being mindful as he's talking about giving your mind to how will I speak to what I see that is good, rather than how will I quietly brood or remain frustrated for the things that are bad. And a lot of times, I don't know for you, but I walk by the things that are good because I'm too busy thinking about the things that are bad, the things I don't like.
Mm,
And
mm,
when I walk past the good, I tend to think that I didn't not see it, it wasn't there. And I can
mm.
tell at work when people are in a bad mood because their narrow focus is on the mood they're in, not on the things that are around them.
Interesting. And so do you view them with compassion?
No, I just bump into them and say, "Get out of my way." Well,
I know you do.
if I can, yeah. And one person in particular that is very sensitive and can easily be in a bad mood, and he was looking down and walking, very thoughtfully in his stuff. And I said, "Hey, what?" He said, "What? What?" I said, I see you looking down, and I said, I've seen your shoes, and if I had those shoes, I'd be looking at them too. They're good looking shoes. And he said, oh yeah, yeah, well, thank you. And he said, oh, and they fortunately I was blessed with the wisdom to notice that they were good looking shoes. There's something good looking in every situation that we're not seeing. It just may be the way somebody's coping with what isn't very good looking, and that they're managing that. You have another quote, I can tell.
Um, well, this is all about diving deep, and say sperm whales are a good
Oh
metaphor
yeah.
for diving deep. They live in an extremely social matrilineal family units, learning from each other how to fend off whalers' harpoons. Humans can learn from the whales. That's interesting. To go deep, or it's safe there.
What's interesting, would you as a land animal decide to go back to the sea? Where's
I might, yeah.
well, okay, wrong question. Right.
I'm an ocean
Yeah,
baby.
whales did that. Whales were land
Yeah,
animals before
yeah.
they were, and
Maybe there was more food there.
yeah, yeah, well, that's probably what, and there were few predators that could get them,
Yeah,
as big as they were. And what's interesting too is how big you are has to do with the environment you're in, not necessarily the size that you're carrying around. Because the whales on land are like, God, I've got to get some of that Ozempic, that.
something to help this
Yeah.
weight.
All I want to do is eat, and I can't help that I'm this big. And other people are calling me obese, and when I'm in the ocean, I'm called the world's largest mammal. Yeah, yeah. I get respect when I'm all wet. Yeah.
So these are tips for this going deep. I know most of you know these, so this is a reminder. The importance of breath. We have a tendency to stop breathing or breathe shallowly
Well,
when we're
and that's a
upset.
fear response. When we stop breathing, it's so the enemy can't hear us and can't see us, we hope. And so when we stop breathing, it's almost as if we're saying at some psychological level, it's dangerous out there. And
Yeah,
so when we take a breath, we're saying it's not so dangerous. In
right,
addition to, we're letting go of what's finished and done, and saying yes to what's available and it's new.
exactly. Awareness of what's happening excuse me, within our heads, our minds. So be aware
Right.
of what your thoughts are at the time.
And if there aren't any, and you're not, that means you may have lost your mind, which in some places could be to your advantage. Yeah.
Well, we're always thinking something.
Yeah.
So as you're aware that, oh, that's why I was feeling the way I
Yeah.
was.
Well,
Listen to my thinking.
right. And one of the ways to find out what you're thinking is to notice what you're feeling, because feelings follow thoughts, even when they're unconscious. And so when you're feeling kind of anxious or uncomfortable, say,
Even 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 when you're dreaming.
well, yeah, what's the thinking behind that I must be doing? And that it's a clue. When you're being negative, you may have seen a negative thing, and the thinking that's good that you're doing is still going on around it. When you say you stop watching the news, one of the problems with stop when you stop watching or start watching the news and the news is off, you're still watching it. Your brain is still watching it. And if you haven't come to some place to be with it, it can haunt you in a lot of very negative ways. And so notice what you're feeling and where did that come from? And do you need to change or address what you're doing so that that doesn't keep happening?
Uh, I think I said this one about what's happening in our
Yeah, yeah.
heads. Managing your energy. So if you find yourself frenzied or upset or tired, just become quiet. Gather your energy again. Be flexible and embrace the depths, the going deep. Um,
The studies have indicated that the two things that caused or allowed humanity to flourish in every species on the planet that has lived to survive has been flexibility and friendliness, which is a really interesting thing to
mhm.
discover. Our ability to be adaptable, adaptability, and kindness have had more to do with every animal's survival than being menacing or dangerous. Practice spiritual tools.
Practice spiritual tools. We've already
Yeah.
talked about that. Meditation, going deep, and listen to your heart and soul. You
Right.
know, listen to your desires, what you want more of, what you want less of. I realized what was really disturbing me about the news, besides that they go on and on and on about something on some of the channels I've watched, uh, is the pictures. I don't want to see pictures of murder, death, kill. I do not want to watch that. And I realize I can get all the news I need by reading or listening to radio, and I don't have to look at any of those pictures. So I would like it if there was something I could do besides the spiritual practices for it. But I think having compassion and knowing that this too shall pass is all I can do right now.
Well,
And vote
it's
in 14 months or so.
this could be possibly a dangerous metaphor, but one of the reasons that we're told we haven't had a nuclear war or we haven't had a war is because we have nuclear warheads and nobody wants to blow up the entire Earth. We have another kind of nuclear power. It's called prayer power. It's called mind power. And one of the reasons that we can live together and do as well as we do is because of prayer power. And it's a quiet power, but it's just as powerful when it's used as invisible as nuclear power is in its invisible use. We're not actually blowing anybody up, but the invisible fear of it has had a great impact on, we think, keeping people from actually doing each other in completely. Well, what if we look at other invisible powers like prayer and spirituality as a quiet power that is very, very powerful? And why I'm suggesting that also is that one of the first things that happens when we watch the news very often is the feeling of powerlessness. And when we are powerful individually because when individuals change what they're doing and what they're thinking, as more of them do that, more things change, even when nobody thinks it's possible.
And we know that's true because of the studies that have been done. What was the meditation group that did those
Oh, yeah,
studies?
it was TM. Was it TM?
Yes, TM, Transcendental Meditation. They did some experiments in certain cities where there was a lot of violence and stuff going on. And so their Transcendental Meditation group all agreed to meditate a certain amount every day, and know peace. And what happened is the violence, the arrests went down in every city they did this in.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just a random one-time thing. They did it in multiple cities and multiple times, and the violence always went down. So that's not even prayer. That's just being calm themselves, being
Mm-hmm.
quiet and connected to their spiritual self themselves.
Where that also, I think, is really, really powerful is that the people that were being affected by this were not people who necessarily believed at all in any of the things that were done on their behalf.
No, they didn't even
And
know it was happening.
so healing can take place in many, many dimensions without that person's willingness to agree to it because they're still available for it. And because we're all in this together, what we think has an impact on each other. And by the same token, if everyone around us is negative, we're much more likely to be influenced by that, and we can become negative even though we may live in away from it. If we're constantly being exposed to it, we're constantly seeing it, which is also why we need to choose to be mindful, because choosing to be mindful means that we're not available for whatever garbage there is that we normally would just say, okay, I can't help that, and store that away as well.
So those are our tips for going beneath the fire and finding your calm. And so now we'd like to share a screen to remind
There
you.
isn't, it isn't there.
Oh, I didn't do it.
Yeah, so we're not going to do it today. Okay,
I
so
forgot to put that up.
right.
But at this point, I would like to thank everybody
Oh,
because
yeah.
we received generous donations in the month of July, and we really, really appreciate that. And
We bought water,
it's, it's,
bread.
it's,
No.
you keep talking. I pay the bills for the business. I'm talking about to help the business
Okay.
go
We
on.
didn't get the new Tesla. I'm sorry that but we do need a private jet, because we don't want to fly around with common people, because we're spiritual. No, we really appreciate the gifts that you've given, and the gifts that you've given, we believe, support the giver as well as those that receive. And you keep us accountable and responsible for staying on track with what we teach and what we know we can do. You've enriched our lives as ministers that enrich, we hope and believe, in the lives of others. And this center has an opportunity to do that. I'm impressed with, and I'll share this, the number of people that come to our site, that don't come to our meeting, that go to YouTube or that visit us
Afterwards, yeah.
afterwards, who will email me from time to time and say, I don't know that I will ever attend, but you changed my life, or I was really feeling bad, and it's really made a difference. I want you to know that you are the reason that that's happening, because without your support, we wouldn't do this. If we didn't do this, those are the people that wouldn't be saying this has been important for us. So what I'm also saying is you're participating in a healing ministry, and your participation is really, really valuable, and we thank you for it. I don't need a private jet.
All right. So
I think what we can do here is to stop there we go, recording stopped.